Make us start. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. So this is our one of our pop-up sessions, and it's our second industry insight session, and we're going to be running this with Transform Society. As you can see, it's going to be hosted by James Darley, who is the CEO of Transform Society, and he'll be taking over after I have a quick introduction with everyone. My name is Gemma Scott, and I'm the Faculty Employability Advisor for the School of Law. So before we get started, just some housekeeping, I suppose. So everyone who logs on will be automatically muted, and your video feed won't be on. If you do have any questions, please pop them into the chat box on the right-hand side. And towards the end, after James's presentation, we will have some time for some Q&A. So we will monitor that, and we will be looking at those and answering those shortly. This workshop is going to be recorded. However, only the speakers and presenters will be recorded, and only your screen name will be visible at times. So no need to worry about your camera or anything like that. And if you are having technical issues throughout the session, or you can't hear anyone or see anyone, try opening the session in a different browser or refreshing. We found that Firefox or Chrome tend to work best. So as long as you're using one of those, you're absolutely fine. So, as I said before, I'm the Faculty Employability Advisor for the School of Law. So if you do fall within that school, so law, politics, criminology or sociology, then I'm there to help you with your future career and employability issues. If you aren't from one of those schools, welcome. We will be going through the session as it is involves to everyone. And if you aren't sure on who your advisor is, pop it in the chat and we can let you know and get you connected with them. So, as I said, this is my contact details. So if anyone within my school needs to contact me, I have an email address there. I've also got a direct line, which I tend to be on throughout the day. So give me a call if you can't email. You can book an appointment with me through our website, mdxworks.com. And if you have any general inquiries, you're more than welcome to send an email to our MDXWorks inbox. So as a service, MDXWorks offers tailored support, advice and guidance. So we work with you to identify your aspirations, your strengths and your potential, what your personal experiences are, talents and passions. And we work with you on creating a CV or an application that is tailored to you and to the specific job role you are applying for. So we offer a menu of co-curricular and work-related activities that develop and nurture the new skills for the future. So during this time, we have been providing these pop-up series, so keep an eye on our social medias for more series in the upcoming future. Maybe there's something that would definitely grab your eye. Before we move on, I'm just going to take you through a couple of slides. So we've put together some statistics and some for things in the regards to top skills, what employers are looking for at the moment, especially with COVID. So this first slide is top skills and fastest growing skills for teachers in the public sector. So if any of you students are looking to get into teaching or something like that, you can have a look here. So we've got the top skills, so things like curriculum development, tutoring, teaching trainings. The fastest growing skills, so working with children, international communication, education, English teaching. And then we've got the in-demand skills. So these are the skills that employers are really looking for right now. So education, tutoring, curriculum development. So as you can see, things are continuously changing and developing. I'm going to move on to the next part, which is the top skills and fastest growing skills for public safety officers in the public sector. So I think these ones are more applying to anyone who's looking to become a prison officer or something along those lines. So as you can see, the top skills: physical security, law enforcement, public safety, The fastest growing skill, so law is a big one at the top there, which is where my expertise come in. Private security, accountability, and again, the in-demand skills, so physical security, law enforcement. So there are some skills here that touch within all three, but it's a good way to see what employers are really looking for and how you can show this on your application. And now we've got for social workers in the public sector. So I think some who are studying sociology with psychology and criminology, this would definitely be an interest to you. So the top skills: social services, mental health, case management. The fastest skills: youth people. So I think those who are studying criminology with youth studies and justice, definitely an interest. And the in-demand skills: mental health, social services. Lastly, so growing skills for mental health practitioner in the public sector. So I think some students who are studying sociology with psychology, this would be a great interest to them. Again, very similar to the previous slides: mental health, physiotherapy, psychology. The fastest growing skills: communication, clinical psychology. And the in-demand at the moment: mental health, psychology, and physiotherapy. So as you can see, there is a wide range of skills, but there are a lot of skills that are transferable. So you can pick up on a certain skill and you can see how it can be used throughout the job sector. So that's it from me. I'm going to hand you over to James now. Just go a moment for his slides to appear. And if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat box and we'll get back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gemma. And hello to everyone. As you heard, my name is James Darley, and I look after the Transform Society Alliance. And I'm going to tell you a lot more about my members through this kind of 15-20 minutes that I'll be sharing some slides with you. Basically, I've been in graduate recruitment for, 23, 24 years. So you have to come across someone like me when you're looking for that graduate job. And it's my responsibility to work out, have you got those skills? And you'll see there are lots of different definitions out there, and different organizations, use skills. Some call them attributes, strengths. There's lots of terminology out there. But basically, this bucket term of transferable skills, I have to see, have you got the level of proficiency in that skill that I know is needed for that job to be done well. So hopefully what I'll be able to do today is not only give you a bit of an explanation about my members, but a bit of an insight into their selection processes, the competencies or attributes that they look for, and just give you a few kind of tips and hints if you're interested in applying to one of those members. So here's what I'm looking to do over the next 15-20 minutes. Which I've pretty much just covered, but also let you know at the end kind of how can you build those skills? What are good ways, particularly now post-COVID, with the jobs market, with the, it's quite a lot more difficult to get internships and certain work experiences. I'll give you some tips and hints on what you could be doing to build those skills. So who is Transform Society? Well, we are just an alliance of 5 programs that recruit talent into different areas of social justice. Hopefully you've heard of some of them, or maybe all of them, but if I go through them now, the first, and I spent 15 years at Teach First, so I was very lucky to be there right at the start, and for 13 years I recruited, 10,000 teachers for Teach First over my time. But I could see whilst I was there that even if Teach First reached its goals of educational equity, which is very hard to deliver, but they're fighting hard to do so, society would still be unfair for the most disadvantaged. So I've then spent the last few years helping 4 other programs set up, which you can see here, and I'm going to talk in a lot more detail on over this presentation, just so that we could try and inspire a generation towards public service, but give them a different type of offering. Are there programs that not only get you into front-facing public sector roles, but are also giving you additional qualifications, additional leadership skills, and very mission-led around not only delivering the kind of day job today, but being committed, like we all are, to changing things for the future. So here are the programs. Teach First came along first, and as you can see there, they're the biggest of the bunch, looking for around 2,000 next year. Then it was Frontline, set up by Josh McAllister, who was a Teach Firster that I recruited years and years ago, who could see that even though he was a great teacher, there were certain children in his classroom that he was really struggling to get across and help because of the difficulties they were having in terms of their situation at home. So really wanted to bring in a different sort of social worker that would all be about how you change the lives of those vulnerable children. You've then got Police Now. They've grown massively and are continuing to grow. Some of you might have heard the announcement a few months ago about additional police officers. Well, Police Now are taking on 2,000 of that 20,000. So their numbers are growing massively. They'll be recruiting about 550 this year, but 800 next year. Think Ahead, which is adult social work for mental health, and then Unlocked for prison officers. But I'm going to talk about each one of them in turn in a moment. And just one quick tip from me. As I say, I've been doing graduate recruitment a very, very long time now. When I started back in the 90s, I was recruiting graduates who would stay, and they'd stay forever, and they'd kind of, get their hamper at the end of their 50, 60 years at an organisation. That is definitely not the world, and apologies, you can hear a phone in the background. That is definitely not the world of work. It is for some particular specific jobs like doctors and vets and a few engineers and a few like that. But on the whole, most of you will be doing a portfolio career world. Where they say you'll be doing 15 different careers in your life. So you might teach for a few years, you might set up your own business for a few years, you might go traveling or have a family for a few years. And this is utterly normal, utterly expected. And you can have a fantastic career now by having those different experiences. And I've been lucky to see the grads that I've recruited onto my programs. The skills that you get doing one of these front-facing public sector roles hold you in phenomenal regard with all employers, whether you're staying in public service or whether you're moving into the corporate world or social enterprise or your own businesses. So if you're not quite sure what you want to do, I would definitely encourage you to have a little look at my 5 programs. We have got lots of positions for next year, and I definitely encourage you to consider us. And I often say to students, it's a bit of a kind of balance when you're looking at what you might want to do in your first job, but between the head and the heart. There may be some head things that you need to think about, like certain amount of salary that you're looking for, or a certain location, so that you can be helping with caring responsibilities or commitments that you have at home. But there's also, and I would definitely encourage you, a heart element to this. You probably are, sorry to say it, going to have to work for 45 to 50 years in your career. I love what I do. I take absolute joy every morning thinking about, who I might be able to inspire today towards some of my programs. I very much hope you also find something that you love doing. And what you see here is just some research from your peers, so graduates across the UK, on what is it that they think is important in their first job. And you might be interested to look at this and just go, actually, what does matter to me? And I'm hugely inspired by that one in green, and that's why I've got it in green. 20 years ago, that wasn't even in the list. Money was in the list, and cars and all these other things, hysterically. Now, wonderfully, your generation really do want to give back to society, and I encourage and definitely support anyone that's interested in doing that. But have a little look. Do some of these things resonate? Do you want to be challenged? Do you want to have responsibility from day one? What is it that actually is important to you when you're thinking about your future career? Okay, so if I take you through now my 5 programs, the first to tell you a little bit about is Frontline. Their mission, they're trying to change the lives of vulnerable children, their theory of change, and you're going to see a lot of similarities with these missions and visions, unsurprisingly, because I've been involved with all of them, and that's what I've been pushing for many, many years. Their theory of change is that they recruit and they develop outstanding individuals to be leaders in social work and broader society. So all of these programs are a minimum of a 2-year commitment. After that 2 years, we very much hope you've been inspired to stay in that particular sector. But equally, we understand it may not necessarily be for you, and it's absolutely fine that you then go on to other things. And I'll share statistics through this presentation on how many stay and how many go, and so on, so on. So Frontline then, there are lots of routes into social work, and I would definitely encourage you, if you're interested, to look at all of the different routes. They're all fantastic, and I'd encourage all of them. What makes us slightly different at Frontline is this kind of mix between the kind of on-the-job training and the academic learning. So in the first year, you're not a qualified social worker. You are observing a qualified social worker, still with that person's caseload. But you're doing those on-the-job training as well as then coming out for what we call recall days for your academic training. That means then you're getting a bursary from Frontline in that first year so that you're not a burden to the council or trust that you're working for. At the end of the first year, you then get your qualification. And then you are a fully qualified social worker for year 2, as you can see there, on a social worker salary, depending on which part of the country and which trust or council that you're working for. And we very much push throughout the 2 years, and actually after the 2 years, this leadership development training. So you get a coach, you get support from us, as well as the team that you're working with in the local council. And then afterwards, you become part of a kind of growing movement of leaders who are, I mean, it kind of varies. Some stay, some move on. You've got roughly 75% that kind of stay forever. Others are moving into policy work. Others are setting up their own social enterprises that are still focused on vulnerable children, but are outside of the day-to-day social work. What they look for, you can see here, C in English and Maths. They are looking for a 2-1 or a first. However, you can have a 2-2 and a Masters, and you can still be considered. But here are the competencies, and these are the things that I'm going to keep highlighting through all of my different sections. You saw them before with Gemma, the research that they'd done, and you'll see some similarities here. But every organisation kind of has their own unique set. I mean, they're not always unique because they're shared amongst some other employers as well. But here you can see Frontline have segmented it into 3 areas. One that's all about the children and the family. So it kind of makes sense that you need to have good motivation for helping vulnerable children and supporting families. Are you self-aware? Are you able to kind of look and analyse yourself after every meeting? Could I have done better? How well did it go? Did I respond well to that parent? Did I diffuse the situation when I walked in that door and there was a lot of hostility? Resilience, am I someone that can brush myself down and get back up the next day and do the same work and kind of learn from my mistakes? The next thing then is about the communication and the working that you will have with people. So you've got that empathy and relationship building that's key, and you need to make some tough decisions sometimes. So can you analyse and be adaptable and also show leadership? The way that they will test this is through a number of different ways. So there's a registration and application form, then an online test that is putting you in the shoes of a social worker, a video interview, and then a 1-day assessment centre. And with all of these, there'll be lots of sessions that I'll be doing with Middlesex over the next year. I can deep dive into one particular member if you're interested and you're wanting to apply for that particular employer. So today's more of a kind of whetting your appetite. I can go into a lot more detail at other times. So Police Now and their National Graduate Leadership Programme. They have a mission of transforming communities. Guess what? How do they do it? It's by inspiring and recruiting and developing leaders within policing. And you go in as a police officer. So there are, 44 forces around the country. All of them do their own recruitment. However, this is a national graduate programme. We work with around 24 of those 40-odd forces all over the country. But we believe passionately that it starts with you being that neighbourhood officer. So the officer that is walking the streets of a community, building relationships with the shop owners, with the criminals, with the families, with all of the different facets of that community, understanding it and helping it and supporting it. You can see there, anyone with a 2-2 or above is more than welcome to apply. Now, it's not a fast-track scheme. You still go through all of the checks and training that every other route into policing does. We've just condensed it and deliver it in a slightly different way. But you stay as that neighbourhood officer for the 2 years. Salary, you can see there, depends on the force. Some of the bigger like the Met and Manchester and the West Midlands, are slightly bigger. Some of the smaller forces and remote rural forces don't pay quite as high. but you are a police officer and you keep coming back for training and support. There's an initial, it's actually just started, Summer Institute, Summer Academy as they call it, with the police now, 6 weeks, residential, where you learn everything that you need to know, and at the end of that 6 weeks you go straight into a force as a police officer. It's a permanent role, so like all of my programs, if after the 2 years you decide you want to move on to something else, you then just resign from your post. But obviously you take the qualifications that you've got with you, and certainly for a lot of these different areas like teaching, you can come back to it at any point in the future. So in terms of their recruitment process, they have an application form and then what's called a blended online assessment. Might seem scary, but I promise you I find it quite interesting and fun personally. It puts you in the shoes of a police officer. You have to read things, you have to watch things, and then you have to respond. What would you do now? This has happened. What would your response be? You then come to an assessment centre, where you go through things like role plays, where you have actors in the room, and we're doing all of these assessment centres virtually at the moment, but police now have made a commitment to run some face-to-face as well in 2021, just in case your personal preference is actually coming together and bouncing off other people, rather than what we're all doing at the moment, just doing everything on kind of Zoom and various other platforms. You then have your conditional offer, doing things like your medical check and things like that before your offer is confirmed. The third of the 5 programs that's been around the longest and is probably more understandable because you've all been through education is Teach First. They have a 2-year salaried program where they offer you training and support, and you make a difference in the classroom from day one. So after the Summer Institute, which they run this time of year, every single year, you go in, real kids, real classroom on an 80% timetable. That then leads you to a master's level teaching qualification, and then you can go on to do a master's in leadership or various other areas at a reduced cost if that's something that you're interested in doing. But with all of the programs, you are paid from day one as you are one of these frontline professionals. Their application process is a lot simpler. There is a written application form that has a situational judgment test in it. SJT, you'll hear about all of these acronyms as you start going through selection processes. This is where it puts you in the shoes of a teacher and gets you to choose what you would do. I'm old, so I remember the Choose Your Own Adventure books. It's that kind of stuff where you kind of choose what you do at the end of each scenario, and it then leads to something usually more more extreme because you've gone down certain routes, but I won't give too much away. When you come to the development centre with Teach First, these are the 7 things that they're looking for. Again, when you look at the competencies, hopefully they all kind of make sense in terms of what the organisation is looking for. You know, you're going to be teaching in challenging schools with pupils that maybe don't necessarily enjoy education and school. So it's going to be your job to have that humility, respect and empathy to be able to connect and build a relationship with those pupils. You need to have resilience because your lesson plan won't go to plan when you do it. You'll have to problem solve. You need to come out of every lesson and go, what could I have done better? So that's the self-evaluation. You need to be very organised, and we need to kind of know that you're very motivated towards the cause. But when you come to one of the development centres, there'll be an interview, a competency-based interview, a group exercise where we give you a kind of school-based task in a very small amount of time and then stir in a bit of extra pressure a few minutes before the end. And then you have to do a sample teaching lesson. So you get a week to prepare and you will come and deliver a 7-minute lesson in front of assessors who are pretending to be certain age pupils, which is always entertaining. Fourth of the programs is Think Ahead. So this is social work for adult mental health, so adult social work. Their vision, they want to see a society where everyone with mental health problems can flourish. How do they do it? They develop the leaders who apply those skills and ethics of social work to empower people and build mental well-being. We all know the statistics before COVID were quite depressing in terms of 1 in 3 adults will suffer from mental difficulties at some point in their lives. We know it's probably going to get even worse as everyone starts to kind of come out of isolation post-COVID. So really important roles. The kind of work that you have to do I find fascinating. So I'll kind of show you this little kind of diagram now, because I think it kind of gives you a really interesting idea of the sorts of stakeholders that you'll be working with. So there's a case worker in the middle there, a service user. So you'll be doing things like evaluating their physical health. Is it that their diet's not great? What's happening in the community? Are there kind of religious reasons why someone might be having difficulty? Friends and family, do they have any, and is the relationship strong? Are they taking their medication? Are they safe in their accommodation? So it would be your role to kind of look at all of this information and then help that service user in the middle to get through the difficult period that they're having. What do they look for? It's a very similar program to Frontline, the other social work program. So it's that 2-1 grade C in maths and English. They have an eligibility check online. So you can go there and just check whether you're eligible to apply. Then an online test. And then you fill in your application, come to an assessment centre and receive your conditional offer. The attributes, the 7 of those that Think Ahead look for: leadership, adaptability, relationship building, communication, problem solving, self-awareness, and also your motivation to be a mental health social worker. Think Ahead are doing phenomenal things. They actually already represent about 12% of all new mental health social workers every year. It's one of these sectors where they're not only trying to bring a new cadre of a mental health social worker, but also to influence kind of local trusts and foundations on just how important it is to have a social worker when someone's struggling through a period of mental health. We do a lot to medicate in this country. I don't think we do enough to add that social work element to it as well. So they're very much trying to influence the sector in that way as well. So the final program, before I then just give a few kind of general hints and tips and then take questions. So do have a think if you've got a question. No question is silly. If you've been through assessment centres and things have happened, I can possibly give you some advice. Think of some questions. I'm always delighted to kind of answer them and give you my reflections. But finally now, Unlocked. So this is the most recent programme, although I am talking to government at the moment about the social care sector. I think there's very interesting opportunities there, and COVID again has really highlighted just how vulnerable our care homes are. But Unlocked is all about rehabilitation. So yes, you are a prison officer from day one for 2 years in a tough prison around the country. But we think that more can be done for those opportunities that you are with prisoners to help them with their rehabilitation. So you can see the stats here: 44% reoffending within 1 year of release, and that nearly becomes 60% if that sentence was less than 12 months. So we really are seeing this cycle of reoffending, and we think if you're interested, coming on board, going through the leadership program, having those opportunities with prisoners to really help them with their rehabilitation, particularly in times of COVID, when, oh my goodness, I was on a board call yesterday actually with Unlocked and hearing that many prisons around the country are literally locking up for 23 hours a day because they're so petrified about the spread of COVID and what's going to happen. What can we do to at least try and give those inside prisons some hope and some guidance and support for when they come out. So the structure of their program, you can see here, all of my programs have these kind of summer institutes where you get your 5-6 week intense training before you start. With Unlocked, you get called a MPO, a mentoring prison officer. So we've hired some of the best prison officers on secondment for a year. And they look after you during your 2 years on the programme, so that you've got that kind of person that you can call at the end of the day when you've had a really bad day, and they can give their advice and support. That leads to a master's degree, and then you can do a bit of work placement. So 3, Teach First, Police Now and Unlocked, all offer you the opportunity to do like a bit of work experience. Obviously not this summer because all work experience has disappeared this summer, but normally and hopefully by next summer and the summers after, depending on when you would join, it'll be back there. But to give you an opportunity to have a go at something else, whether that's in the corporate world, whether it's different parts of the criminal justice system, whether it's in the Ministry of Justice that we have a strong relationship with, or wherever it may be. We've asked our participants to deliver a policy paper. I did it at the start of Teach First, and it proved really popular. So every year now, our participants and ambassadors write a policy paper that we then launch at the House of Commons, so that we can try and give that kind of front-facing view and voice from the front line. what their process is: eligibility check, application form, video interview, and assessment centre. What they look for, and you can say if you put all of these competencies together, that they're all very, very similar. Also, I wrote all the selection processes for Teach First, and then we kind of adapted and evolved them and changed them as we created all the other programs. So there's lots of similarities, as you will have seen through those attributes and skills that I've presented today. Things like motivation, self-awareness, leadership, resilience, decision-making. You can see absolute common themes. Unlocked is slightly different, where they've got that sense of possibility. I think because what we're trying to change in terms of rehabilitation is such a big ask. I can remember chatting to a prisoner at Wormwood Scrubs a couple of months ago before the COVID all kicked off, and talking about what his plans were. And as much as you can have those rehabilitation talks, he said, I was on £5 a week stealing drugs. And how you then get to change someone who is earning £5 a week and wants to go back to earning £5 a week, you have to have that sense of possibility, that you're going to crack that individual and you're going to make them see that there's a better way of seeing their future. Because if not, it's likely they may well come back in a few years' time. So sense of possibility, a kind of a really exciting one for me that I always get quite inspired by. So last few slides for me. So hopefully you're thinking of your questions. So whoever you apply to, whether it's my 5 members, whether it's other graduate schemes, or whether it's other employers, you're going to have to go through some kind of screening. Sadly, now 98% of graduate applications get rejected. I absolutely hate it. The sector I joined 24 years ago, graduate recruitment, for me has become graduate rejection. So the more that you can do to kind of build yourself up, understand the processes, have that confidence to apply, which you should. I should say all of my members do blind screening. It's something I introduced and had mandatory. So no one sees your name, your gender, your university, where you live. Anything that could be remotely used as bias in any way for all good employers now is stripped out. So hopefully that just, you should have confidence anyway. But if you don't and you're worried about that, you shouldn't be, because it's just not included in the selection processes of everyone. But the numbers are just insane, from the civil service fast stream that had 65,000 this year, to PwC that had 100,000, to police now that had 10,000. I could go on and on and on. It's crazy in terms of the numbers. So you're going to come across something with screening. So work with your career service, take every opportunity you can to practice things like gamification, SJTs, immersive tests, all of these sorts of things, because you're going to probably have to go through them. I mean, so many processes now are literally all done on your blooming phone. Your exercises in gamification where you'll see a balloon grow and the number grows, and it's a risk exercise. Are you someone that pushes that balloon to pop it before it explodes itself and you collect the points? The sophistication is the artificial intelligence is going up and up and up and up. So brilliant that you're watching this. Keep watching these and keep getting involved in the various initiatives that MedX Works are doing for you, because they are going to help you get that role that you want. When you come to an assessment centre, I've explained quite a few things. In-tray exercises, these are used on a lot of the more corporate roles. But this is literally where you'll be on a laptop, have an inbox, and things just keep flying in. Do you delegate it? Do you escalate it? Do you just read it and file it? Do you action it? They're literally just kind of watching and kind of seeing what you do with all the information that comes in. To group exercises, where I said before, you'll kind of have to do an impossible task in an impossible amount of time, and they chuck in a bit of extra pressure at the end. Presentations, role plays, interviews, all of these things are coming. So please work out who you want to apply to, work out what their competencies are that they're recruiting against, and what you're going to go through in the selection process. Also use the internet as well as your career service, places like Glassdoor, Student Room. Most students have put the questions of every employer in every interview up online somewhere. So for goodness sake, utilize that, do it, and do your kind of research. Last couple of slides from me before we have questions. You saw the competencies of my 5 members. I did a bit of work the other day just to look at the top 100 firms and what do they look for, and here are the top 10 skills. And I would often kind of say to you, please look at this list. or the list of the organisation that you want to work for, and just do a simple ranking now. Where do you think you are from 1, utterly useless, to 10, couldn't be better? If any of you put 10, cross it out and start again, because I'm not even a 10 and I've been doing this for goodness knows how many years. But truly evaluate yourself. And if you are a 2 or a 3 or a 4, it's likely that the employer is going to want a 6 or a 7. So what is it then that you're going to do to kind of build your skills in those particular other areas? So what can I do? The first thing is, please don't panic. Yes, the graduate market has been affected. The big employers, not so much this year. I think it will a little bit next year. So my prediction is the top kind of firms that recruit about 25,000 will probably be about 3 to 5% down. So it won't be decimated, but it will be down a little. It's the SME, the small, medium-sized employer market, that is absolutely going to be affected. And around a quarter of all graduates go into that market. But it will recover. Internships as well have all gone online or been postponed, whatever it may be. There's definitely an opportunity, and I kind of mentioned this about work experience a few bullet points down. I'm certainly hearing from a lot of my colleagues in graduate recruitment that once they've delivered their summer internship programs, which they're frantically writing and delivering now, a huge amount of them are actually say they're going to put it on their websites and have it open access for you, for everyone, come the autumn term. So if you are, interested in law, in consulting, or in, some of the more professional careers, it is definitely worth, going to the PwC Employability Hub, which is brilliant. I helped the team there with it a few years ago. And use everything that is out there, because if you haven't had a chance to have a physical bit of work experience or internship, if you can experience some of the learning and the skills enhancement and the knowledge that some of your peers would have got through these virtual internships this year, then you're going to be on equal footing when you go for that kind of full-time job. So here are some of my tips. Do that research. There really is no excuse not for doing your research. It's so easy now. I come from the day where I had to go to a library or, microfiche to kind of look up things. Nowadays, you just on your phone whilst you're, popping wherever you might be going, you can do your research. So please do. Depending on kind of what happens with campus and your extracurricular activities, those are super. Certainly as an employer, if we're asking you questions, we like to see a variety of situations in terms of your answers. So whilst if you did have to answer everything from the coursework that you're doing, that's okay, but we would much prefer it if you're able to draw on some extracurricular, draw on some work experience, even if it's key worker roles. So many students say to me, I can't answer these questions, I find it so hard. And then when you get chatting to them and you realise that they've been working on the till at Tesco and they actually had to deal with someone who had a heart attack in front of them, or they had to deal with a difficult customer that caused lots of problems, I'm going, those were better skills examples than, someone that had an internship at Goldman Sachs, for crying out loud. So please do, think about what you are currently doing, and then look at those skills and see what examples you've got and what evidence you've got that you've been doing it. Also volunteer, please be safe, but I'm seeing it here local to where I am. Maybe there's a care home where someone would just appreciate a call every day. Maybe you could be picking up prescriptions for someone. Maybe you could be, the options are kind of endless. Do take the summer just to see whether your local community needs any support or some help, keeping safe, of course. But it is an interesting opportunity, now with what's happening. We're not all just going crazy and going outside like the press like us to believe. I was seeing articles today about actually the percentages that are still afraid to come out of their homes. This could be an ideal opportunity for all of you to just think how you could reach out to your local community and build your skills, but also, and more importantly, just help those that are most vulnerable at the moment. So hopefully that was helpful. It was supposed to just be a kind of intro snippet into my members. As I say, I'll be looking forward to doing lots more with Middlesex over the coming year.
Thank you, James. We've got a couple of questions through. So Eloise has asked, do you need experience as in volunteer or paid in the social work sector to apply for Think Ahead?
Theoretically, no. However, I think those that are most successful through the selection process are able to articulate why they're so passionate about mental health social work. So I'm being careful with my words because it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to have experience in that, but you need to have very good answers as to why particularly mental health social work is something that you're most interested, not other areas of mental health, not other areas of kind of social work. And I think those that have had experience with working with individuals different from themselves, and again, I'm being careful with my language because it doesn't mean that you have to have had mental health social work experience to get it. But if you have, as I say, maybe worked with, vulnerable in your community, children, from a school's education point of view, there are lots of opportunities out there. So I think sometimes having work experience where you're able to articulate why helping those that are vulnerable, and that you've got some experience of working with those that are vulnerable, and it's actually something that you enjoyed very much, but more importantly, the service user got value out of, and was either happier or was progressing in some kind of way.
Brilliant, thank you, James. Whilst we wait for a couple more questions to come through, what I will say is especially something. So, James, I'm just going to pop the slide up about the transferable skills. Now, I find a lot that students don't realise how many of these skills they actually have and how many they use in their part-time job.
Correct.
They just assume that, I don't do anything about leadership. I work just behind the till. So I'll take my part-time job as an example. I worked within a pub. I was just a standard bar person. But the teamwork skills that I actually had, and without realising, is I was
negotiation probably, and perseverance,
negotiations
and
for sure,
under pressure, confidence,
all of those for sure. But I think the teamwork one, when I was being asked to train new people, that is definitely a skill that comes under leadership and teamwork, and we start to develop these skills from so early on, we don't realize it. So if you're unsure on whether you have these skills or not, just contact us. Like James said, you have a conversation with one of us, and through the conversation you'll find that actually you do have these skills, and it's about wording them in the appropriate manner. You don't just want to throw out you are a leader. You need to explain how you are and what sets you aside from everyone else. Yes.
Car star. There are lots of different techniques out there on how you answer questions. Use your career service. Use Gemma.
Yes. Have we got any more questions? Let's have a look.
And not to worry if you don't. I say, a lot of you just need to start thinking now about what you want to do in the future. You are joining a portfolio career world, so you don't have to commit to something for the rest of your life. But it is absolutely important that you understand, you have an idea of who you want to apply to. You understand the competencies, transferable skills that they're going to recruit you against, and that you take this summer and next year, or how many more years you've got before you're graduating, to build your skills in those particular areas. Also, register with those organisations, follow them on LinkedIn. These are all the ways. Find alumni that that are now social workers or teachers. Ask them questions. You'd be amazed. I can remember there's a great story that I always tell about LinkedIn, where a student really wanted to work for this particular employer, had followed someone on LinkedIn, had spotted that they had this kind of Taco Tuesday initiative, where the person that got the most sales, their team was treated with free tacos. And in this interview, this student mentioned the Taco Tuesday, and the interviewer was going, "How the hell do you know about Taco Tuesday?" And they got into this conversation, and the person got the job, because it's this human element as well as these skills. Ultimately, organisations want people that are passionate about the role, but also that they're going to have fun with. Whether you're a social worker, a teacher, or an investment banker, you still spend a lot of your time with colleagues, and they want to know that you're fun, and that you've got something about you, and that you're passionate about what the organisation's trying to do.
Completely agree. And when it comes to doing your research, a really top tip. Just if you're researching a particular firm or a particular scheme or anything like that, just set a Google alert up. So anything new that comes up about that firm or the scheme will come directly into your inbox, and then you can filter through that way. So you don't need to sit there and search and is this relevant? Is this not? So that's Google alerts is a great way to do some research. But
hopefully it was valuable. As I say, we're doing lots of other sessions. Please look out for them, and really excited to help you all in the future.
Yeah, so I think that's it for now. Thank you to everyone who joined us, and a big thank you to James, who helped present this. This will be available on our YouTube channel in the coming days, so keep an eye out for that. And if you want to share it around, more than happy. Any feedback, let us know, and have a good day.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye. Right.
Thank you, Gemma. That was lovely.
Yes, that was really well done. Thank you so much for all of that. No, it was absolutely great. We've got
Pleasure.
a few of the students saying thank you for that. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, lovely.
Lovely. I'm sure I'll see you again soon, I hope.